Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Popped In, your home for all things pop culture. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the most exciting and freshest pieces of Star Wars media with Star Wars Andor. Now, Season 1 just wrapped up, but that's not going to stop me from talking about Season 2 because I'm super excited for what they could have in store for us. And, just as a bit of, excitement building for Season 2, we're going to be talking about the top 5 characters that I think should appear. Now, first things first, this is kind of technically more than 5, but that's because certain ones were kind of grouped together, and as opposed to like listing out ones, like one whole group could make up this whole list, and why use a whole list for that when I can just combine them into one slot. So I'm also not going to have characters like Darth Vader or other characters from this time period just because while they would be cool to see, they don't really belong. So I'm trying to go for more characters that make sense for the story and aren't just like useless fan service like we've gotten in the past. So coming in at number 5, we're going to go ahead and go with the Star Wars Rebels cast. Now, this is mainly the Ghost crew, but I also throw in Ahsoka because I feel like she could make a ton of sense here. Now, the main Rebels group, we got Hera, Sabine, Ezra, Kanan, Chopper, and Zeb. I don't think Kanan or Ezra necessarily would make too much sense, but I do think Hera would be the one that makes the most sense because she's kind of the connective tissue of the Rebels group with the broader rebellion as a whole. And she also had contact with Mon Mothma and Bail Organa and other rebel leaders that would make sense to see connected here. I think Sabine would probably be the next most likely because, just tying into the Ahsoka series coming out because she's supposed to be a major player in that show. So it makes sense and kind of build hype for that and connect this show with The Mandalorian and its spin-offs. And Chopper would also make a ton of sense because we've already seen him in Rogue One, so just having him as a background character, rolling around doing whatever he likes to do would also make a ton of sense. But Ahsoka is another one that I think would make a ton of sense, which might be the one that makes the most sense because number one, like Sabine, like Hera, she's going to have more of a connective element to the broader Star Wars TV universe because she's in The Mandalorian, she's got her own show, and it would kind of give us a bit of that. Well, Ahsoka's also been a very prevalent character throughout all of Star Wars, really, since Disney has taken over, so it would tie things in very nicely, put a nice bow on things, if you will, and people just love Ahsoka, and also, she is a Fulcrum agent, which we know Cassian becomes one by the time of Rogue One, and Saw Gerrera is also a Fulcrum agent at some point. I'm not really sure if he still is at the time of Andor, but it would make sense and tie into Rebels and the broader timeline in this period and not be like too fan servicey. So yeah, that, like I said, the Rebels group, I could have done Hera, Sabine, Ahsoka on their own, but I feel like it just makes more sense to tie them all together here. But then coming in at number 4, this character could kind of tie into a couple more I've got on this list later on, but I feel like he's different enough to be on his own, and that is director Orson Krennic from Rogue One. We got spoilers here for the show if you haven't seen all of Andor, but in the season finale, we got a post-credits scene showing the construction of the Death Star, which obviously Krennic is at the forefront of that project, so it would make a ton of sense to see him at some point as we get closer and closer to the mission to steal the Death Star plans, which obviously is what Rogue One, its main plot point is. So it'd make a ton of sense to see Krennic from the Imperial perspective if we see like Dedra Meero, other Imperial characters and stuff. So Krennic would make a ton of sense. But then, just also as a tie-in to Rogue One, seeing a character like Krennic would be one that would make sense. We could see him in the background. He doesn't have to be like a main player or anything in the story. So Krennic, I think, would be one that would be cool to see and also make sense for the story. Then at number 3, we're going to go on. This is probably the most out there one because he would probably come across as the most fan service of all the characters. This is Emperor Palpatine, but I think he does make sense for this because of the Senate political intrigue that we get with Mon Mothma. We got references to Sly Moore and other characters in the Senate, so Emperor Palpatine would make a ton of sense to see him because, he is the Emperor after all. And as things get more and more intertwined with the Death Star and other projects pretty close to the Emperor, it would make a ton of sense to at least see him either in hologram form, in person, whatever it may be. So Emperor Palpatine is number 3 on the list. Then coming in at number 2, we've got Galen Erso and Bodhi Rook. Now, these two, if you aren't familiar with them, they're from Rogue One. Galen is, of course, Jyn Erso's father. He's the one who, the architect behind the Death Star, working with Director Krennic. They used to be friends until Galen found out what exactly he was building, a planet-killing superweapon. And Bodhi was an Imperial pilot that Galen, Bodhi was willing to defect. Galen was trying to get information about the Death Star out to the broader galaxy. And Bodhi is the pilot that he chose to help him in his mission. So it would be cool, Tony Gilroy with Andor has said season 2 is going to be, tying everything in to Rogue One. And this is probably the biggest plot point that could lead into it is, finding out Galen Erso, the part he plays in the project, and finding out about Bodhi Rook, which first time we see him, he's captured by Saw Gerrera. So seeing the interaction between both these characters would be pretty big for the series, and tying it into Rogue One. And another character that, kind of ties into it is Jyn Erso, which I don't think we'll see her. It would be cool because Felicity Jones, who plays Jyn, signed on for more than just one project with Rogue One, but obviously her character's dead, much like Cassian. But I wouldn't be too surprised if we did see her at some point, either in a small role or if she's one that's introduced and we get to see her perspective a bit before Rogue One. Like, I could see that, like, for the final arc of the season, kind of following her until she's captured on Wobani. But at the same time, I also feel like that could be a little bit fan servicey and not necessarily needed, but I could see them pulling it off and it working pretty well. But she's one, I guess, an honorable mention. She's not really one of the 5 that I was thinking, but I think it would be cool to see her, and it would make sense for the story, especially if you're watching it chronologically leading into Rogue One. But that brings us to number 1, which the character that I think would make the most sense to see. I feel like he's the one that kind of was missing from season 1, which you probably already can guess who this is, but it's Bail Organa. We've seen him in Rogue One. He's been in Rebels. He was in Obi-Wan Kenobi. Jimmy Smits is still around playing him. So I think he makes a ton of sense to see. He's like the founding father of the rebellion, essentially, with Mon Mothma. And I just think he's such a critical character to the rebellion. And the fact that we didn't see him in season 1 or even get a mention of him is pretty mind-blowing to me. So he's definitely, I feel like, the most easy to see character that's going to be in season 2, which, like I said, I'm completely shocked he was not seen in season 1 at all. So I think he's going to be able to come in, possibly help Mon Mothma with her issues, financial issues, but also, help the rebellion grow and flourish, connect it back. He's got the contact with Ahsoka. I don't think Obi-Wan would really make much sense, but he has those connections too. Like, he's got the connections to help the rebellion grow, and connecting with Luthen, Cassian, Mon Mothma, all these characters, I feel like he is a pretty instrumental one in the grand scheme of the rebellion, and one that makes complete sense to be in this show. But anyways, those are the top 5 characters that I think should appear in season 2 of Star Wars Andor. Now, this is just my list. If you guys want to see other characters that you think would make sense, be sure to drop them in the comments below. Let me know who you think would be the most sensible characters to include in the season, and the ones you just want to see the most. Like, I know we all want to see Darth Vader, but I don't think he really makes that much sense in the context of the story. But, whoever you want to see, let me know in the comments below, and we can talk about it down there. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.